In this episode of Ask Sam, where I talk about relationships and people and how humans work and how they interact with each other, we're going to talk about how humans, you, me, and everyone else are illogical. Yeah, you heard me. We are illogical. And I know what you're thinking. Sure, lots of people are illogical. All those people are illogical. That guy on YouTube, he's illogical. But me, no, I'm pretty logical. I mean, not 100% of the time, but I'm pretty darn logical. And here's the fact. You are not the exception. You are not logical. We are all fundamentally illogical, wetware-driven systems who want to be, our brains truly desire to be logical. We feel it all the time. Just from me saying the words, you're thinking logical, good, emotional, bad. Of course, we know there are good emotions. Love, caring, these are emotions that are good. We feel good about them. But when we say we're emotional, we fundamentally don't feel good about putting that label on anybody, right? It's used as a negative connotation because logical is good. Logical is the truth. It is using the correct mechanisms. It's replicable in other situations. A computer can tell us when we're being logical. So all people are fundamentally emotional, but our brains don't like this for all the reasons we just said. So what happens is when our brains sense that we have done something without logic, it doesn't compute. Our brain panics and it tries to figure out, well, clearly we are not emotional. All those other people are, but not us. We must have had logic. And our brain will try to apply anything it can to make what we've done feel logical to us, even if it's readily apparent to other people that it was not. Because when we look at other people, we are not very emotional. We tend to be logical while analyzing the world around us. But when we're analyzing our own brains, we are very emotional, and we are never going to admit internally in our minds that we've been non-logical, that we've been illogical. That's just not something that we're okay with on the inside. So a problem that we have is when we struggle to admit that we are fundamentally illogical, that we are emotional. It empowers our brains to say it must be that we're logical and we just forgot what logic we used, but it must have been logical. This then creates a cycle where we lie to ourselves to try to convince ourselves that we were logical, and then we start imagining false logic that we may have used. And you see this all the time with people when you question them on something and they'll tell you some completely crazy thing that is their logic for why they did something. And they're doing that almost always because their brain does not want to admit that they've done something illogical. It wants it to have been logical, and it's sure it must have. And so it fills in the gaps and does what it can to make us not really analyze it and realize how crazy thing we just did. Now, there's a way that we can not fix this, but there is a way that we can approach it better, and that is by admitting to ourselves that we are illogical, that we are emotional creatures. This does a lot. First of all, the truth is always better, right? The idea that false information, lying even to ourselves, is going to somehow improve things is always wrong. That's crazy. It's emotional. It's illogical. Use logic. Stop and say, well, I don't feel good about this. Wait, that's I don't feel good about it. That doesn't make it wrong. Use some logic and start empowering yourself to argue with yourself. Give yourself the leniency to say, you know what? I probably do crazy things that are illogical all day long. I don't logically think about what thing to purchase when I go to the store. I don't logically think about my breakfast. I don't logically think about my emotional reaction to traffic. I don't, all kinds of things. I catch myself doing it. I accidentally drop something and I'll start to get angry at the object that I dropped, when in reality it's just following the laws of physics. And you can't logically be angry at the laws of physics. It is me who miscalculated carrying the object. I failed. Stop being angry at the universe or inanimate objects. That's just emotional, and it's not useful. It's not a big deal. You're not hurting anybody, but this is the type of things that happen all throughout the day, all the time, And when we are convinced that we must be logical, we start acting crazy, trying to make the world feel more logical to us. But when we know that we are emotional, when we accept that we can have made illogical decisions and have illogical emotions applied to us, then we're able to say, whoa, okay, I'm not thinking about this right. At the time, it seemed like it made sense. And that's correct. It did seem that way. I think I'm wrong about that. I think I didn't analyze that correctly. I think maybe the logic to that is not what I thought. Maybe I got the right answer. Maybe the answer I got was okay, but maybe it wasn't. Let's use some logic. Let's step back, separate ourselves from the emotion, take a moment, and start intentionally using logic. Because one of the things that happens is our emotions hit us quickly and we respond just to the emotions. We don't even realize that there's a moment where logic should be being applied until after it's too late. But if we start to feel those things, we can start to recognize, whoa, I'm being emotional. Maybe I should stop, apply some logic, and see if what I was thinking is correct. Now, I'm not saying you have to change your entire life. I'm not saying that this is the most critical thing. What I'm saying is that, and this is one of the things that we learn in business, right? When you study really high-end business management, this is stuff that they drill, and is one of the ways that really high-end business is able to outperform a lot of smaller companies. How people without the training struggle to compete is because we get trained in business ways to control our minds and help us not react in foolish ways to things, not to react emotionally, but instead to be able to say, whoa, maybe I'm feeling upset, but I shouldn't react to that because that's going to be detrimental to me, or it's going to be detrimental to my company. It's going to be a bad decision because I'm not going to make the decision well. We also learn that by impacting other people, making them feel emotion, will make them very easily make bad decisions. And so if you're negotiating or you're marketing, there is an opportunity to, if people are not intentionally trying to be logical, you can play on that and it puts them at a disadvantage. So that's why I'm telling you this now, is that this gives you the opportunity to go out and say, wait, I am emotional, and that's okay. There is nothing wrong with being emotional because there's no other option. That's really important and really empowering when we get past the I must be a special snowflake and I'm the one logical human being in the entire universe syndrome that we almost all have, and instead say, I like all other humans, are emotional. I will make mistakes. I can work to overcome that, and I can recognize that there are mistakes that I will always make, that I have made, that other people will make, and they are because of emotions. And if I can call myself on that, if other people are empowered to call me on that, I can improve and get more and more logical, whether it is changing how I respond in the moment or learning how to look back and change how I respond. And while this sounds like a bunch of stuff about business, and it's easy to feel that way because that's where we really get this training, this applies to everyday life, and it applies to things like our interhuman relationships, your friendships, your romantic relationships, your relationships with your pet or your grocer or the neighbors. All of these things are influenced by the fact that we react emotionally when that may not be the best thing for us. We will often burn bridges, end up in fights over things that don't even make sense, and then make them worse because we decide to get into bigger and bigger arguments or to respond in very bad ways because we aren't stopping to think about them. We're being emotional. We're always going to be emotional. You can't stop that, but you can change how you react to it some of the time and improve and realize that you can step back and say, I can change things, I can be logical, and it really gives you a lot more power. But the first step is accepting that people are illogical. I am a person, I am not an exception, I am not a special snowflake. All people are emotional, all people can use logic, but they have to want to more than they want to lie to themselves and pretend they had already used logic when they didn't make a conscious decision at all. Thanks for watching. Comments below. We're going to talk more about this. I think it's a big piece of a lot of things. It applies in a lot of places. And I really encourage you to also read the book Predictably Irrational. You can find it on Amazon. great book that goes into a lot of these things. Humans are irrational, and you can show it through predictive measures. I'm going to do this thing. We can talk about how incredibly crazy this is, but if I do this thing, 9 out of 10 people are going to react in this completely illogical way, predictably. It's not just that we're emotional, we're predictably emotional, and that is powerful to people who understand that, and powerful to us when we start to control it. Like and subscribe. I will see you all next time.